Hi, Mr. Villeneuve. First off, congratulations on your new film, and thank you for taking a little bit of your time. I appreciate it.
Oh, no, no, please, Francisco. Nice speaking to you.
So, sir, one of the things I was really impressed with part one was how faithful it was to the book. Part two continues that, but going in, I've always thought the second half of the book was going to be more challenging because of the content and pacing. But, sir, you managed to pull it off, so you've improved upon it. So, I wanted to ask you, when preparing and writing the script for the second part two, was the back end of the book a concern? Or a challenge in any way, and how much thought did you give to this aspect of the adaptation?
No, no, it's like it was massive concerns that we knew, John Spate and I, that part one in a way was easier to write than part two. That part two has a lot of challenges, and one of them was to make sure that we will stay close to Frank Herbert's initial intention, that it was not a celebration of Paul Atreides, but much more a cautionary tale about charismatic leaders and the danger of blending religion and politics, and it's uh, uh, that's what informed this adaptation as much as possible to stay close to his initial intentions.
Yes, and you managed to pull it off. Like I said, another element that I loved about part two is that it's more action based than part one. In part one, you set up the world and the characters. In other words, you present the sandbox and the toys. But this time around, you get to play more time with the toys. So how fun was it to get to do more action this time around? And were you looking forward to this?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You put it very nicely. The part one was really an introduction, like an appetizer, and the main course is definitely part two, and it's like it is a movie that is much more muscular, playful, more action, and you go deeper into the characters' relationships, and it's a more rich, more dense movie so it's like it was definitely much more joyful for a director to be in that zone than part one.
Yes, definitely. It shows on screen. So, to my next question, you take me to in part two. You also take time to go deeper into the mythology of Dune and explore more of the serious themes that are relevant to today, like politics, religion, family, destiny, revenge, corruption, etc. But after thinking about it, after watching it, I really appreciated how all those themes are intertwined with the Paul and Chani relationship. So, would you agree that at its core, part two is kind of like a love story? And if so, was this part of your intention?
Absolutely, and I'm happy you're saying so because this is the was the I kept saying to my crew that the if we the audience didn't believe in Paul's and Shani's journey, their relationship, there will be no movie. The whole movie is structured on their love story, and that was since the day one and the writing process my concern that these characters will convey all the elements, the ingredients of the tragedy, and that we will see through Shani's eyes Paul's transformation, and she will become our guideline and that our way of seeing the Paul's transformation, and she will be the one who will give a critical view on Paul's bold choices, and that was like at the art of the adaptation. This is what makes this adaptation unique from the book.
And I agree with you, and it shows, like I said, throughout your
But I,
impressive.
I, will, I, will, I will say that this was done because I knew that this was very important for Frank Herbert, and my idea was to make this adaptation very close to Frank's intentions.
And I think he will be really proud about that, sir. Throughout your impressive career so far, you've done incredible films. I mean, but the Dune films, especially part two, they're just so big in ambition and in scale. So I wanted to ask you, moving from part one to part two as a director and a writer, is there something you learned from the first one, from your experience shooting and doing the first one, that you somehow implemented or used when shooting and doing the second part?
Absolutely everything. I'm learning, like any director on earth. I'm learning from my mistakes, and and everything. Every time I make a movie, I know I sometimes as an artist, you succeed somewhere and you failed, and as a filmmaker, me, when I watch my movies, I see where I failed, and I'm trying to improve my, and to learn from my mistakes, doing part one, I learned a lot of things, and that I try to correct doing part two, and it's like, I think that's what is beautiful about my job, is that this constant feeling that you can do better, and that was
I don't.
that what pushed me forward, is that the conviction that okay, I was not good enough. I can do better. I can. So I have to go back behind the camera because I didn't succeed 100%. So it's like, it's always that movement toward trying to make something that is relevant as a cinematic object, and it's yeah, it's what pushed me forward.
Sir, I don't think I don't concur with you. I don't think you did any mistakes with part one or part two now. So before wrapping up, I wanted to ask you. I read somewhere that 30 to 40% of Dune Part One was shot in IMAX format. So I want to ask you, what percentage of Part Two would you say was shot in the IMAX format, and how did this format help you develop even more this time around your vision of the world of Dune?
The part two was shot 100% in IMAX. The why? Because the IMAX was used for the desert, the landscape, everything involving nature, desert, and space was used in part one for IMAX. And when you go to part two is mostly shot all in the desert. And I felt that I wanted the movie to be have that kind of immersive feeling. There's something about IMAX which is perfect for Dune, because IMAX is has two strength that the other format don't have, which is, it's of course perfect for the impact of landscape, but it also creates an incredible intimacy with the characters, where you feel that you can almost read their thought. There's something about the size of the screen with the human face that it creates some. And Dune both movies were shot in extremes, either close-ups or wide shots, and the IMAX format was definitely ideal, and was at first thing I said to Greg Fraser, to convince him to come on board. I said I would love to shoot this in IMAX, and for part one, and he agreed with the idea. And for part two, it was like, without question, a movie that would be shot entirely using this format.
And I think fans are gonna appreciate that a lot. Before wrapping up, this is kind of off the record, Denis. Close to the third act of the film, you have Mr. Christopher Walken, who's a legend, and I don't know if you are familiar with the SNL skit, and there's a part where he screams more, more. Is that in any like a reference to the cowbell SNL skit or?
No, I know what you're talking about. I know
Was that?
Christopher Walken, but no, it's not. It was not intended. But I see what you mean.
That's okay. It's funny, but I was like, I'm gonna try to ask him about that. So, sorry again. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Big fan of your work. Congratulations on part two. I'm looking forward to seeing it again on IMAX, and I can't wait for part three.
Thank you. Take care.